All right, so yesterday we started talking on cardinal utility. We will continue with that. We'll be talking further on cardinal utility today. So yesterday we had talked till the diminishing MU and equilibrium and derivation of demand curve in cardinal utility. Now we talk about equimarginal utility and the law there. So see, the expression of the law is a simple idea. When we say law of equimarginal utility, the expression of the law is that if there are multiple commodities in the market, then the ratio of their marginal utility to their price should be equal to marginal utility of money. That is the law of equimarginal utility, that if there are multiple commodities in the market, then the ratio of their marginal utility to their price should be equal to marginal utility of money. Law of equimarginal utility is also used for multi-product equilibrium, in cardinal utility theory. That is where it is used. Multi-product equilibrium in a cardinal utility theory. So law of equimarginal utility is used in that also, to get a multi-product equilibrium in cardinal utility theory. The idea there is simple. Just to recall for you from yesterday, because I was saying many things yesterday, so just to make sure that you don't get mixed up on that. When I use the term MUX upon PX, MUX tells me the utils per unit, that I am deriving. I hope you understand that. For each extra unit that I consume, what is the satisfaction I get? That is MUX, isn't it? This is satisfaction from each extra unit consumed. Each extra unit consumed. On the other hand, when we say PX, this is rupee per unit, price paid per each extra unit. So obviously this gets cancelled. This unit can be kg, liter, anything. This gets cancelled and essentially leaves you with utils that you get per rupee by purchasing a commodity and giving a price for it. All right? Socho ek baat, I'm drawing a table for you from yesterday itself. So suppose if I take quantity 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, say 6, and I take MUX as 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, 0, and I take PX as suppose 2 rupees per unit. Now that means if I take the ratio MUX by PX, I am getting undefined, of course, and then 5. So what does this 5 mean? This 5 means that we are getting 10 rupees, 10 utils from satisfaction from the first unit. And how much do I pay for the first unit? 2 rupees. So per rupee that I pay, how much satisfaction do I get? 5. So if I write this as nothing but 5 utils per rupee, makes sense? All right? And what is this? The satisfaction I get for every rupee I spend. All right? Satisfaction I get for every rupee I spend. So when I write MUX upon PX, it is nothing but satisfaction derived from purchasing an extra unit in terms of per unit of money spent. I hope you are making sense on that. Satisfaction derived from purchasing an extra unit in terms of per unit ऑफ मनी स्पेंट, आपने जो 1 रुपया खर्च किया उससे आपको क्या सेटिस्फैक्शन मिला, दैट इज व्हाट यू आर गेटिंग विद दिस MUX अपॉन PX. Now my point is, if you see this equation kind of, if I say MUX upon PX is equal to MUM is my equilibrium, the point is very simple. MUM tells you what? Satisfaction that you get or satisfaction that you lose, whichever way you look at it, by paying a rupee. तो जब तुम कुछ खरीदते हो तो पैसे देते हो. When you purchase something, you pay money for it. Now satisfaction that you get by paying money for it and satisfaction that you lose by paying money for it is what you are comparing. You understand that? Suppose if your MUM, again going by yesterday's example, is 2, then that 2 implies that for each rupee that you have to spend, you will lose 2 utils of satisfaction. For each rupee that you have to spend, you will lose 2 utils of satisfaction. I hope there is no confusion on that. And this tells you the satisfaction that you are getting for each rupee spent. So if you get 5 util satisfaction for each rupee spent, and if you give 2 rupees for that, which means you will be losing satisfaction much lesser. You understand that? You will be willing to buy that product. Do I reach you on this? So there is no difference between talking about an MUX upon MUM equals PX or talking about an MUX upon PX equals MUM, apart from the interpretation. बस interpretation करने का तरीका बदलता है, बातें वही हैं. As long as MUX by PX, I'm saying something and I hope you would understand, as long as MUX by PX is greater than MUM, more X will be bought. Right? Because MUX by PX is greater than MUM, so more X will be purchased. And if MUX by PX is less than MUM, that means the satisfaction I am getting per utils per rupee is lesser than the money I am paying utils per rupee. You know, जब आप कहते हो MUM 2, इसका यही मतलब होता है ना, 2 utils is what I get from each rupee. Right? So if I get 5 utils from each rupee and I give 2 utils per each rupee, not a problem, I'm willing to buy that. It's only when the amount I am paying is such that it will result in MUM becoming greater than MUX by PX, I will not have an incentive to purchase then. Do I believe I'm reaching you on this? So now think, that means equilibrium for X will happen when MUX by PX is equal to MUM. And equilibrium for Y will happen when MUY by PY is equal to MUM. And equilibrium for Z will happen when MUZ by PZ is equal to MUM. And is MUM fluctuating or is a constant? So, wherever MUM is equal to MUX by PX, automatically it has to be equal to MUY by PY. You understand that? अगर MUX by PX MUM के बराबर है और MUY by PY MUM के बराबर है, तो दोनों एक दूसरे के बराबर होंगे ही, क्योंकि MUM तो खुद ही कांस्टेंट है. I'm just repeating myself in English. If MUX by PX is equal to MUM and MUY by PY is equal to MUM, then MUX by PX will be surely equal to MUY by PY because they are equal to the same constant. But you know, when law of equi-marginal utility was given, it was thought of like this. इसको जब दिया गया था, तो सोच कुछ ऐसी थी. I'm taking you into that. You got the last line wrong, Akanksha. It should be when MUF of the product also rises. Make it rises and you will get the statement easily. Make it MUF the product also rises, the last line. All right. Now, understand my point like this. It was given this way. It was said that that's an assumption. Don't forget the third assumption of Marshall. As I told you, the assumption was to keep money as a measuring rod, and where measuring rods can't fluctuate themselves. Absolutely. And that is why an assumption, mind you, why I am insisting on the word assumption. You always assume what doesn't happen in the real world. Otherwise, why would you assume? You understand that? So that is always remember that is the way. जब भी तुम economics पढ़ो, देखो ये assumption है. So assumption means that it is not happening in the real world. Otherwise, you wouldn't have to assume that. Then it's happening. So MUM is not a constant in real world, but to get equilibrium, Marshall assumed it to be constant, because for Marshall the idea was that let money work as the measuring rod, that let everything be expressed in terms of money, and then let us see where we are. All right. Okay. Now see, when we talk about so coming back to my point for you, the discussion was like this: if MUX by PX is greater than MUY by PY. If MUX by PX is greater than MUY by PY, all right, that will mean I'm deriving more utility from X per rupee spent on it compared to the utility I get from Y per rupee spent on it. What will be my obvious choice? Buy X, isn't it? My obvious choice will be to buy X. As I buy X, MUX will start becoming lesser. When I will buy X, due to law of diminishing marginal utility, MUX will start becoming lesser, and I am putting money on X, not on Y. It's like I'm shifting my money away from Y towards X. मैं Y को कम खरीद रहा हूँ, X को ज़्यादा. So that means purchase of Y is falling, which means MUY will start rising, and that will continue till the two things become equal. So the necessary condition is this. And the sufficient condition is this. In cardinal utility theory, the necessary condition is first get these equal. And the sufficiency is when these are equal to MUM. Alright? कि पहले तो इनको equal करो, but सोचो अगर ये सारे equal हो और greater than MUM हो, तो और खरीदने लगोगे कुछ ना कुछ फिर. You understand that? If they are all equal but greater than MUM, you will still buy more X, more Y, more Z, and then see how things work out for you. And all this will continue till you reach an equality like this. So this is the basic idea of law of equimarginal utility. Can I borrow one of yours notes? I can guide you on few things there. Yeah, thank you. Well, see, when I've given you in the notes the talk on law of equimarginal utility, I've given you a definition for that. That is, according to the law of equimarginal utility, a consumer will distribute his money income between the commodities in such a way that utility derived from last rupee spent is always equal, good remains the same when all income is spent by the consumer. Now, fair enough, what I actually wanted you can take this, thank you. What I actually wanted you to notice was, notice that part, that how law of equimarginal utility works. I'll give you a write-up further on this. But I first want you to see one more thing. Graphically speaking, I can take a graph like this, MUX by PX, MUY by PY, origin of Y, you buy more Y as you go this side, origin of X, you buy more X as you go this side. Alright? MUX by PX, MUY by PY, अगर आप ज़्यादा Y खरीदते हो इधर जाते हो, ज़्यादा X खरीदते हो इधर आते हो, और ये आपके वर्टिकल एक्सेस हैं. एक तरह से एक एक्सेस है ऐसा और एक एक्सेस है ऐसा, और मैंने इनको मिला दिया. Alright? The two different axes and I join them. Then this can be my MUY by PY line, and this can be my MUX by PX line, and this can be MUM line. Alright? This can be MUY by PY, this can be MUX by PX, and this can be MUM, and we can believe that this can be a graphical representation of consumer equilibrium in case of two commodities in cardinal utility. All right, this can be a graphical representation of consumer equilibrium in case of two commodities in a cardinal utility system. All right, that is the graphical representation that you can write for it. Yes, yes. Yes, necessary condition is something which you need to fulfill, without which the activity cannot be completed. As in, when you say A implies B, all right, so in that case you are talking about A being a necessary condition for B. Or think like this, when you say you need stability for maxima or minima, so stability is the necessary condition for maxima or minima. So similarly now think, unless you don't have this equality, you cannot think equilibrium. That becomes necessary condition. But then sufficient condition is that without which you cannot complete the discussion. All right. So in, like say A implies B, B becomes the sufficient condition of that. Of A implies what? That if these are not equal to MUM, then there is no equilibrium. Which means an equilibrium implies that these should be equal to MUM. If you remove this, even if they are equal, it's not sufficient to prove equilibrium unless this doesn't happen. You understand that? Like this, close this, that is one thing. But unless they are not equal to this, it's not sufficient to prove equilibrium. All right? हाँ, अगर यही आपस में equal नहीं है, तो ये तो check भी नहीं करोगे. नहीं, ये तो मैंने बताया कि क्यों ये ऑटोमेटिकली इक्विलिब्रियम में इक्वल होंगे. नहीं, मैंने ये कहा था that if MUX by PX is equal to MUM and MUY by PY is equal to MUM, then the two will be equal to each other. मैं ये कह रहा हूं कि अगर MUX by PX MUY by PY के इक्वल ही ना हो, तो ऑटोमेटिकली वो MUM के इक्वल नहीं होंगे. ये तो अपने आप ही बात हो गई, क्योंकि दोनों में से कोई एक ही हो सकता है. मेरा कहना ये है कि अगर MUX by PX इक्वल टू MUY by PY नहीं है, तो मैं MUM को चेक भी नहीं करूंगा, क्योंकि अभी तो मैं इक्विलिब्रियम में हूं ही नहीं. ये तो सर्टेन है. इट्स नॉट इवन नेसेसरी कंडीशन fulfilled. ठीक है. Now I am making you write few things on law of equimarginal utility, and then I will use law of equimarginal utility to make you write on diamond water paradox. हाँ बोलो. No. It's all curve. अगर straight दिख रहा है तो मेरी drawing mistake है. Alright? ये सारे curves हैं. मतलब उसमें कोई hard and fast rule नहीं है. ये अगर straight line भी हम draw करते हैं तो हमें कोई रोक नहीं सकता है. I mean the examiner will not deduct the marks. ठीक है. Unless it doesn't, no, they can cut here, they can cut here, anywhere. Not a problem. I mean, I could have drawn a diagram like this also. All right, so not a problem at all. All right, yes. Yeah. Both the graphs. So, no, they are overlapping. There won't be the addition here, because if you can't add things both sides. All right. Okay. So let's see this then. You write in that, according to law of equimarginal utility, law of equimarginal utility, comma, equilibrium in consumers market with consumption of multiple products takes place takes place when the ratio of marginal utility to price, the ratio of marginal utility to price which shows now I'm telling you the interpretation of MUX by PX, which shows the utility derived is utility derived per is हटा देना, utility derived per unit of money spent is equal for each commodity. Please keep this in mind. When I say MUX by PX, I mean utility derived from one extra unit of commodity per rupee spent. Utility derived from one extra unit of commodity per rupee spent. And if you recall from yesterday, when we said MUX by MUM, then we took the value of how much utility I derive from an extra unit of commodity in terms of money. Utils was not here anymore, isn't it? MUX will be something like, say, 7 utils, and MUM can be something like 2 rupees per util. So this util and util get cancelled, and I was left with a 3.5, which said that MUX by MUM was telling me that this is the money value I get by purchasing an extra unit of the commodity. That was MUX upon MUM. That is why we were directly comparing it to price. MUX by PX is utility derived per rupee that we have spent. And that is why we are comparing it to MUM. That how much utility you get from each unit of rupee that you have. Alright, and then the comparison. I hope this part is clear to all of us. Alright. You continue in that. So now what I made you write is that law of equimarginal utility says that first of all, utility derived from an extra unit consumed for the money paid for it is equal for all the commodities. Utility derived from an extra unit per rupee paid is equal for each commodity. You write this is the equilibrium, the necessary condition, this is the necessary condition for equilibrium, full stop. Sufficient condition is attained when the ratio of marginal utility to price matches marginal utility of money. Full stop. The sufficient condition shows the sufficient condition shows that in equilibrium, utility derived per rupee from purchase of last unit of the commodity matches the utility lost by consumer by paying that extra rupee. I hope it makes sense to you. MUM is what you lose by paying that extra rupee. Lose as in, since you are paying money. पैसे दे रहे हो तो यूटिलिटी लूज कर रहे हो, पैसे मिल रहे होते तो यूटिलिटी गेन कर रहे होते. इसीलिए that is why it is important that this horizontal line intersects these two curves at their intersection. If this horizontal line is above these two curves, then that will mean MUM is greater than MUX by PX and MUY by PY. If this horizontal line is below these curves, then that will mean MUX by PX and MUY by PY are above MUM. You can never have equilibrium. So for equilibrium, you need all the three to intersect. All right, so I'm taking you into the figure then. You write, the figure shows and remember one thing about micro, whenever you feel you are running short of words, start explaining the figure. All right, that is what you can do in micro always. जब भी लगे word short है, कम words हैं, तो figure शुरू हो जाओ. As shown in the figure, we have taken MUX by PX on one vertical axis and MUY by PY on the other vertical axis. Origin of X and origin of Y are moving in opposite direction to each other. The curve of diminishing MU is resulting in downward sloping MUX by PX and downward sloping MUY by PY and so on. So once you explain the figure, and don't worry, it's not a repetition. The examiners are put off by repetition. अगर तुम एक ही बात बार बार कहो तो उससे वो जरूर गुस्सा होते हैं, पर अगर तुम डिटेल में जा रहे हो उसको एक्सप्लेन करने को, दे आर ओके विथ इट as long as the word limit is permitting it. So always when in micro you are in any trouble, pick up on the explanation of the figure. In macro, whenever you are in some trouble, pick up on an example and start explaining the example in detail. That is always that should be done. Remember, end of the day, it is never more than 250 words. So you have to create those. And they should be created in a manner where repetitions can be avoided, when main points could be put. And as soon as you will write entire thing, you will realize that it's getting more than 250 words in any topic that you are writing. All right, that is to keep in mind. But normally, these questions are never for more than 150 words, so we are safe on that these things are never for 250. They have better things to ask in micro, so they never put you on 250 words here. All right, in the same thing you write, the figure shows that equilibrium takes place at point E where the curves representing ratio of marginal utility to price intersect each other and they are intersected by and they are intersected by the horizontal line representing marginal utility of money. All right, this is one part of the story. Now the implication. I hope you're okay with the law of equimarginal utility. And why do we call it equimarginal utility? Because on the margin, the satisfaction derived from both commodities after paying for them is equal. Okay, just think over it. In case it comes to your mind, all right, but isn't it all too theoretical? Well, yes, of course, it is too theoretical. But the fun of it is very well explaining our consumer behavior. All right, I'll give you an example. Will you be willing to pay 500 rupees if you are given a gold coin of 10 grams? I remember. And will you be willing to pay 500 rupees if I give you 10 gram of peanuts? कैसे कैसे नजर से देख रहे हो मुझे? धूर्त मक्कार आदमी. Okay, I get your point. Now in the first place, you are willing to give me 500 rupees because of 10 gram gold, because 10 gram gold gives you higher satisfaction compared to 500 rupees. If somebody tells you, look, the price is 500 rupees for 10 gram gold, how much are you willing to pay? Or how much are you willing to buy? You will be willing to buy quite a high amount because the satisfaction might be quite high. On the other hand, if somebody says 10 gram for a peanuts, 500 rupees for 10 gram peanuts, we'll say, go to hell, I'm not buying it. This is nothing but, what are you comparing? Your marginal utility from the commodity divided by the price of that commodity, and how much money do you have to pay for it? See, of course, like Marshall, MUM doesn't remain constant. We all know that. MUM changes. But end of the day, all these three variables is what we are counting on. मैं एक और तरीके से आपको समझाता हूँ, रियल वर्ल्ड एग्जाम्पल की तरह. जब आप कहते हो ये चीज महंगी है, this thing is costly. Why? Why is something costly? Something can be costlier for you and cheaper for me. Why? And something can be costlier for me, cheaper for you. Preferences? Isn't it? Your MUX can be different from my MUX, and your MUM can be different from my MUM. You understand that? So suppose I am a miserly person. मैं बहुत बड़ा कंजूस हूँ. My MUM is 20. All right, let's keep it as that. That my MUM is 20. And suppose you are a spendthrift person, your MUM is 2. Now in that case, the same priced commodity will have to give me 10 times more satisfaction on the margin to be willing to buy that commodity. Price same रख दो, but उसका marginal utility क्या होना चाहिए? 10 times ज़्यादा मेरे लिए, तभी मैं उस commodity को खरीदूंगा. And that will automatically mean I will buy lesser than you. You understand that? Now I'm applying it to some real world things. Please be careful. So then imagine if I tell you that please pay 1,000 rupees for 1 liter bottle of water. Would you be paying that? Okay, no. We put you in the middle of Sahara Desert. 3 days you have not got any water. Now I ask you the same question. Will you be willing to pay 1,000? Well, if you are not willing to pay 1,000, then you are actually heavily with very high MUM. क्या आप बोल रहे हो मैं मर जाऊंगा लेकिन नहीं दूंगा 1,000 रुपया पानी के लिए. So please understand what I'm trying to teach you is, end of the day, your willingness to pay is a function of your satisfaction derived, and your willingness to pay is a function of your satisfaction derived from money. When your satisfaction derived from a commodity is high, you are willing to pay more for it, but you will more easily buy that commodity if satisfaction derived from money is, yeah, bear with them, they have their last optional class today. So they will be in a different mode. All right. अभी टाइम है तुम्हारे में बहुत. अभी तो शुरुआत हुई है. So when you talk about this, when we think of this, the point I'm making is your willingness to pay, I repeat, is a function of the money that you are getting in utility terms. MUX is the utility that you are getting, and that decides the money that you are willing to pay. That is why all of us individually have different willingness to pay for the same commodity. You understand that? All of us individually have different willingness to pay for the same commodity. Mind you, it doesn't matter what we actually paid. What we actually paid is the market price, say 2 rupees. That is fixed by demand and supply forces. But my willingness to pay can be very different between me and you. Do I reach you on that? Okay, now tell me this. You were willing to pay more for a, say if you played with a toy car, you were willing to pay more for a toy car when you were 6 as compared to what you would be today. Why? What changed in between? Your marginal utility. You understand that? That toy car could have been for 500 rupees and you could have insisted on parents, oh buy me this. और parents मान लो क्या बोलेंगे? अरे ये तो बहुत महंगा है. Why are parents saying it's very costly? For them, they are looking at it from their marginal utility. अब अगर मैं सोचूं मेरे लिए बारबी डॉल और जो वो हॉट व्हील कार्स का क्या यूटिलिटी है, तो कुछ भी नहीं होगा. कोई खास फन नहीं है मेरे लिए वो. तो मुझे कोई बोलेंगे 50 रुपए का भी, तो क्या लोग फालतू पैसे फेंकते हैं इन सब पे. बट एक्चुअली वो फालतू पैसे नहीं फेंक रहे आप. इट्स नॉट दैट यू आर स्पेंडिंग इट without any reason. Your willingness to pay is high because you are doing better there. You are happy buying it. That is the practical application of this factor. Now, coming further, so for a commodity whose utility, now, okay, so I give you 1 liter of bottle, 1,000 rupees, you get it in Sahara Desert. I give you the 2nd liter of bottle now. Will you be willing to pay 1,000 again? निकलो बाहर, हो गया मैं जिंदा वापस. I'll find an oasis for myself. ठीक है? Rather, you will not be willing to pay even 100 rupees to me because you know you are satiated. You know what I'm trying to teach you? What I'm trying to teach you is, in case of necessities like water, like salt, like school uniform, the marginal utility falls very quickly. ये जो diagram मैंने draw किया है ना, अगर एक necessity के लिए draw करूं, तो कुछ ऐसा draw हो जाएगा. A steep MU. Alright? If I believe that Y is a necessity, then in that case, the marginal utility will fall very steeply. As soon as you get the basic requirement, your needs are met, your utility is falling very quickly. But in case of luxuries, the marginal utility falls gradually. 1 piece of diamond followed by the 2nd piece of diamond. Now the 2nd piece of diamond can give you lesser utility than the 1st piece, but the utility won't fall very drastically. इच्छा खूब जागृत रहेगी, एक तीसरा भी मिल जाए तो अच्छा होगा. If I could get the 3rd one, and then if I could get the 4th one. That is your marginal utility falling gradually or slowly because now it is a luxury. आपको एक एग्जाम्पल देता हूं, आप देखना, होपफुली आप उससे कनेक्ट कर पाओगे. अगर आप बहुत ही डिसिप्लिन्ड आदमी हो तो शायद ना कर पाओ. आप अपने घर में जितना खाते हो, किसी पार्टी में या किसी होटल में उससे ज्यादा खा के निकलते हो. ठीक है? मैं ये नहीं कह रहा हूं किसी दूसरे का पैसा है इसलिए, वो तो एक बात अलग हो सकती है. I am talking a different point. I am saying that the food of the hotel is a luxurious food. You have too many things on the platter and they're exciting you with a lot of decoration. So the mind says take more. And the food at home is a necessity. You take it every day. So the mind says, all right, my stomach is filled, I don't want more. That is why people in the hotel, when I'll teach you markets, I'll bring it back. But that is why people in the hotel, they bring things like buffet. What is the benefit of a buffet? The benefit of a buffet is marginal cost is very close to 0. And they know that your marginal utility is very high in the beginning. You are a hungry person. They can tell you, pay me 2,000 rupees, 5,000 rupees, 500 rupees, whatever is the buffet charge, and you can eat as much as possible. The mind records as much as possible without realizing I can't eat beyond a limit. But the mind says, oh, I can eat as much as possible because at that time you can be pretty hungry. So you're willing to pay 2,000, 5,000 for it. Then you enter, you start eating. You will eat more, no doubt about it. Because it's a luxury. But you can't eat beyond a limit that the producer knows. ठीक है, ऐसा थोड़ी तुम पेट किराए पे लाके ऐड करना शुरू करोगे कि अच्छा ठीक है दूसरे का भी लाए तीसरे का भी लाए अब खाए जा रहे हैं, तो होगा नहीं, तो एक लिमिट के बाद रुकोगे ही. So that makes sense for them. So remember, why does it happen that luxuries attract us? Because luxuries are at times lesser available, I'm not saying available for us or you, available in general. So luxuries attract us more. If you have too much of luxury at home, then the luxuries become like necessities and they stop attracting you. Okay, in case you are failing to understand this part of the story, those of you who know how to drive a car, vehicle that is, imagine the fun when initial days when you were learning it. And gradually when you had learnt it, कोई घर में कहीं भी जाने होंगे ना, होते होंगे ना, आप वॉलंटियर करते होंगे, मैं लेके चलता चलो मेरे साथ चलो मैं लेके जाऊंगा. So everybody would take you as such a nice kid who is willing to help everyone around. Now you drive your car, the luxury becomes a necessity. You drive it day in, day out, 1,000 kilometers, 5,000 kilometers. Now it's boring. Now if somebody tells you, I have to go somewhere, could you go? अरे यार तुम हमेशा क्यों जाते रहते हो? Why? Because now it is a boring thing. The luxury has become a necessity. Your valuation has come down. So what I'm trying to teach you is that in case of luxuries, if I believe X is a luxury, then your willingness to pay will be quite high and you will be willing to buy more of X compared to Y in equilibrium, assuming this as MUM. Your MUX can be at this level, your MUX to PX can be say 10,200. On the other hand, over here it's a luxury, your MUY to PY, this is also MUM, don't forget, assuming MUM is 100, your MUY by PY can be something like 50 upon 0.5. They are both 100. I'm sure you acknowledge that. दोनों ही 100 हैं, लेकिन एक के लिए तुम 50 पैसा देने को तैयार हो और एक के लिए 100 रुपए देने को तैयार हो. किसके लिए 100 रुपए देने को तैयार हो? जहां तुम्हारा MUX 10,000 है. I'm just repeating myself in English. For one of these commodities you are willing to pay 50 paise and for another commodity you are willing to pay 100 rupees. Which commodity are you willing to pay 100 rupees for? Where MUX is higher. Where will be your MUX relatively higher in case of luxuries? This is what explained, or this is what was used by Marshall to explain what is called diamond water paradox. पैराडॉक्स का मतलब क्या होता है? कोई भी ऐसी चीज, पैराडॉक्स का मतलब होता है कोई भी ऐसी चीज जो रिजल्ट उल्टा दे एक्सपेक्टेशन से, तो वो पैराडॉक्सिकल हो गया. Alright, anything that gives you an opposite result compared to expectation is what is paradoxical. So when we say diamond water paradox, what it simply means is that diamond gives much higher marginal utility compared to water. See, what is the paradox? The paradox is diamond is not essential to live and people are still willing to pay more for a diamond, while water, which is essential to live, people are willing to pay less for it. So Marshall explained it by saying that this paradox arises because people are willing to pay on the basis of not the total utility that they derive, but the marginal utility that they derive. People are willing to pay on the basis of not the total utility. Total utility of water is still higher than diamond. But people are bothered about the marginal utility, and marginal utility of water is comparatively lesser because it falls very sharply compared to diamond, and that is why willingness to pay for water is also lesser than willingness to pay for diamond. That is why I repeat, my willingness to pay for a home meal can be lesser than my willingness to pay for a hotel meal. Kind of luxury and necessity is what I am comparing. जब आप luxuries को compare करोगे necessity से, luxury के लिए आपकी willingness to pay जो है वो हमेशा ज्यादा हो जाएगी क्योंकि लग्जरीज पे मार्जिनल यूटिलिटी जो है वो धीरे धीरे कम होता है और नेसेसिटीज पे मार्जिनल यूटिलिटी जल्दी कम होता है. आई एम जस्ट रिपीटिंग माई सेल्फ इन इंग्लिश. On luxuries, you are willing to pay more because the marginal utility declines at a slower rate. In case of necessities, the marginal utility declines at a faster rate. And due to that, the willingness to pay for necessities is lesser than luxuries. But mind you, look at the ratio in the example that I have taken. The ratio is 100 either ways. You take 1000 by 100 or you take 50 by 0.5. But since marginal utility from last glass of water, suppose it was the second glass of water, say my marginal utility was 50, but the marginal utility from even the 10th diamond was say 10,000, I am willing to buy 10 diamonds and 2 glasses of water by paying 50 rupees for water and paying 100 rupees, 50 paise for water and paying 100 rupees for diamond. I can believe I reach you on this. This is an application of equimarginal utility. Yes, yes. Okay, so the question I'm answering is how is total utility from water will be higher than diamond? Because you take water away from your life. You're not surviving. It's just that since that's why I gave you the example of Sahara Desert. You know, okay, let's create a scarcity of water. एक अफवाह उड़ा देते हैं कि अगले 4 महीने में पानी की किल्लत होने वाली है. लोग पकड़ पकड़ के अपने घर में स्टोर करेंगे. वो तो हमें पता है कि ये बहुत सारा है, आराम से मिल जाएगा, तो हम उसकी वैल्यूएशन कम कर देते हैं. Once we realize it is not a lot and it's going to get decline, then the valuation starts rising. All right, so total utility from water, total utility from salt, they will be higher because okay, I'm answering it in a better manner, maybe a little example-based manner. Total utility from water or salt is higher because the satisfaction from their first unit itself is much, much, much higher than the satisfaction you will get from, say, something like diamond. 4 दिन से प्यास लगी है, पानी नहीं मिला है, अब जो 1 यूनिट मिला वाटर का. वही तो मैं कह रहा हूं कि scarcity, okay, let me explain it to you this way. Scarcity creates the mental perception. I need it. That clarifies it. Scarcity पता है बस क्या करता है? Clear कर देता है जरूरी क्या है. पर जरूरी तो हमेशा water ही है. You understand that? That scarcity or lack of something just makes it clearer to us that this is essential. But it was always essential. It was not that water was less essential than diamond. You understand that? So essential in the sense what? Gives me more satisfaction. Is total utility. No. You know why? The curve steeper means the curve will begin with a larger, perpendicular. इन दोनों में ये नहीं कह सकते हो कि ये एरिया अंडर द कर्व पक्का पड़ा ही होगा इससे. ये विजुअल इल्यूजन है. ये कह नहीं सकते हो. ये देखने में लग रहा है बस. ठीक है, क्योंकि ये बहुत ऊपर हो सकता है. हाँ, नहीं, यहां से ये ऐसा शुरू हो सकता है और स्टीपर है, और ये फ्लैटर ऐसे भी जा सकता है. देखने में लगेगा कि ये ज्यादा बड़ा दिख रहा है और ये कम, बट कोई जरूरी नहीं है ऐसा. नहीं, ये बात कर रहा हूं. कहीं क्योंकि स्टीपर है, स्टीपली फॉल कर रहा है, तो इसलिए ये कभी मत सोचो कि ये एरियाज आपस में कम या ज्यादा होंगे. हमें नहीं पता अभी. ठीक है, वो तो जब फंक्शन को इंटीग्रेट करेंगे तो ही पता चलेगा. ऑल राइट, let's see this then. So I'm making you right on diamond water paradox. I can believe you are clear on the idea. Yes. Willingness to pay MU के बेस पे डिसाइड होता है. All right, that is the idea. Come again, please. Because he explained it in terms of value in use, while ideally it is a value in exchange. For how much will you exchange 1 unit of water for 1 unit of diamond? He explained it with how much you will use water and how much you will use diamond. Well, of course, I will not use water beyond a point. So saying that I will keep on using water doesn't work. So that sense he was not correct. All right, so I'll just take a second. Some of your friends have asked me a question here. Okay, I hope Devyani and Pritha, you got your answer, and Ashfaq. I had just explained these things only. Vrishabh, I hope you could hear me in Hindi. You are a wonderful combination, you know. Some of you insist I should speak in Hindi, and some of you don't know Hindi, so it's interesting. All right, don't worry, but I'll take care of both. Correct, Vikas. You're right. Marginal cost of any commodity will come to that in competitive market, Krishna Kumar. All right, it is decided by both buyer and seller. We are at the moment assuming there is a price decided. All right, we are assuming there is a price decided. I hope, Pranit, you got the diamond water paradox. I'm making you write that anyways, so don't worry. हाँ बोलो. अच्छा नहीं, तुम्हें 4300 की चीज 1100 की मिली, तुम खुश हो के लिए या दुखी हो के लिए? क्यों खुश थे? सस्ता मतलब क्या होता है? तुम्हें क्यों लगा ये सस्ता है? क्या खरीदे क्या तुम उसमें? रेंट, जीन्स. मैं तो 1150 भी ना दूं. ये सब कपड़े तो वाइफ ला देती हैं. मैं तो, मेरा बस चले तो मैं तो नॉर्मल जो फॉर्मल कपड़े होते हैं पहन लूं, हो गया 400-500 रुपए में काम खत्म. वो कहते भी हैं कि तुम्हारी शक्ल पहले ही ठीक नहीं है, तुम कपड़े अच्छे पहना करो. ऐसी मजाक कर रहा हूं. अब सीरियस बात पे आते हैं. देखो क्या हुआ, जो तुमने जीन्स लिया ना, मान लो सस्ते का, सस्ता इसलिए लगा तुम्हें क्योंकि जो तुम्हारी यूटिलिटी है तुम उसे कॉन्शियसली नहीं सोच रहे. वो तुम्हारे सबकॉन्शियस में है कि जब तुम कहते हो ना मेरे लिए इस चीज की इतनी वैल्यू है. क्यों है वो वैल्यू उतनी? क्योंकि वो चीज तुम्हें उतनी सेटिस्फैक्शन देती है. समझ लो मेरी बात. तो जब भी हम वैल्यूएशन करते हैं ना, जैसे मैंने अभी तुमसे कहा, मैं मजाक कर रहा था, पर अगर मैंने कहा मैं तो इतने भी ना दूं कपड़े के, क्यों? मेरे लिए उतनी वैल्यू शायद ना हो. तो मुझे कोई कहे 4200 का जीन्स है, आपको 1150 का मिलेगा. चलो मैं तुम्हें एक दूसरा एग्जाम्पल देता हूं. मान लो मैं टी टॉटलर हूं और मान लो तुम नहीं हो. ठीक है, कि मैं शराब बिल्कुल नहीं पीता और तुम पीते हो. ठीक है, अगर ऐसा एग्जाम्पल, अरे मजाक कर रहा हूं. सो अगर ऐसा एग्जाम्पल रखें, अब हम एक मॉल में गए, उस मॉल में लिखा हुआ एक लिकर शॉप के बाहर 40% ऑफ फॉर टुडे. उसको देखकर मुझे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा. मैं देखूंगा, मैं कहूंगा कमाल है, क्यों बेचने सस्ता, चला जाऊंगा. तुम मेरा साथ छोड़ के घुस जाओगे अंदर, कहीं से टोकरी वोकरी लाके जमा करके. तो मतलब क्या हुआ, हम दोनों एक जगह गए, बट मेरा सेटिस्फैक्शन नहीं था तो मैंने उस चीज में इंटरेस्ट नहीं लिया, जबकि 40% डिस्काउंट था. तुम्हारा सेटिस्फैक्शन था, तुमने इंटरेस्ट ले लिया. इस स्टोरी को उल्टा भी कर दो. अब इस स्टोरी में अगर ऐसा कर दें कि हम दोनों शराब पीते हैं, बट मुझे बहुत ज्यादा आदत नहीं है और तुम्हें जबरदस्त एडिक्शन है, तो उस केस में 40% डिस्काउंट पर तुम्हारे साथ मैं भी घुस जाऊंगा, लेकिन मैं जितना खरीदूंगा तुम शायद उसके 5-6 टाइम्स ज्यादा उसी प्राइस पे खरीद लो. अगेन क्या हुआ, तुम्हारे लिए वो और ज्यादा वैल्यूएबल था, मेरे लिए उतना नहीं था. तो यही कहानी पता चलती है कि जब तुम जाते हो कहीं कुछ खरीदने, whenever you go, and that is what I am saying is the beauty of this theory, even though the theory had its own criticisms which we will go into, but the beauty of the theory is it could explain human behavior. That is what humans do. When the price rises, they buy less. When the price falls, they buy more. They value commodity and then purchase it. Same humans are willing to pay different price for different commodities. You understand that? So the theory, the part of the theory is not about what was wrong in it. There were things wrong in it. The beautiful thing about our subject is, मैं economics की बात कर रहा हूँ, is that it can precisely dictate and precisely declare something which is very difficult to declare, and that is human behavior. ह्यूमन बिहेवियर को प्रिडिक्ट करना कितना मुश्किल है. हमारे सब्जेक्ट में हम वही तो ट्राई करते होते हैं बार बार. Humans will do something like this. Humans will do something like that. Many humans themselves don't know what they're going to do. And economics tries predicting it. So that is the basic idea. That, and don't forget that precisely predicts many times. Precisely estimates many times. ये तो कोई मना नहीं कर सकते ना कि प्राइस बढ़ने पे everything else remaining constant, वो कम खरीदते हैं. प्राइस कम होने पे एवरीथिंग एल्स रिमेनिंग कांस्टेंट, वो ज्यादा खरीदते हैं. और ये थ्योरी एक एक्सप्लेनेशन दे रही थी यूजिंग मार्जिनल यूटिलिटी, दैट यू बाय मोर व्हेन द प्राइस फॉल्स बिकॉज यू आर गेटिंग मोर सेटिस्फैक्शन नाउ एंड यू आर लूजिंग लेस सेटिस्फैक्शन. पैसा देना, सेटिस्फैक्शन देना, सामान मिलना, सेटिस्फैक्शन मिलना. तो कम पैसे देने पड़े, ज्यादा खरीद लूंगा क्योंकि मिल ज्यादा रहा है, देना कम पड़ रहा है. You understand that? All right. In fact, when I'll teach you producers market, I'll take you further. But remember, this is the human psychological system on which producers also play a lot. Like advertisement. You know that when you advertise, what are you trying to do? You're trying to tell people this is a very important thing, you must buy it. You know, ये नहीं खाया तो क्या खाया? क्या खाया? नहीं खाया. ये समझने की बात यही है, यू नो. बट ये जानबूझ के अट्रैक्ट, I'll take a second, जानबूझ के अट्रैक्ट करते हैं. प्रेफरेंसेस क्रिएट करना कहते हैं इसको. If you create preferences, people will be willing to pay for that because people will feel, oh, this is very important to do. People can be paid to create preferences, that's advertisement. People can be surrogately paid to do it, create preferences, that's called surrogate advertisement. Film stars going to Maldives, taking their photographs, putting it on Instagram. Well, they can be paid by the hotels at which they are staying. They don't need to pay those hotels. Now those film stars are putting those pictures and suddenly the common people start seeing it and they say, let's go to Maldives. And I left the same hotel in which that film star lived. Without even realizing that that film star lived for free, you paid. I'm not trying to make you skeptical, you bear with me. But I'm trying to tell you how advertisements are created, again, to create preferences for people. You know, many such things across us, which may not be a necessity across, or even luxuries or distant luxuries, but they get created in that manner so that people can catch up on it. So that is the idea of creating utility so that people can pay for that utility gradually. Yes, yes. So see, MUM 0 means you are saying money has no value for me. MUM 0 means you're saying money has no value for me. Each extra unit of money gives me no satisfaction, no dissatisfaction. You will need to find an exceptional human to do that. You know? MUM 0 is always possible. It's a theory that somebody believes that I have no value for money. All right, so in that case, it's MUM 0. All right, yes, yes. No, it can fluctuate. So I'm answering something. The slope of MUX by PX can change because there can be curves. So there can be curves, they may not be linear always. The slope will be flatter. It will fall slowly. No, you know, it will go something like this. You see that? It goes like this. It will start becoming kind of horizontal after a point of time. That you're not deriving any further utility from it. All right? That kind of a thing. All right. You bear with me. You know, I'm so naughty inside. How everything starts bulging up. All right, let's see. Up here. नहीं, ये जीरो होना कोई जरूरी नहीं है. एक जगह पे जाकर एक ऐसा सिचुएशन आ सकता है कि आप x खरीदते हो लेकिन आपके MUX by PX पे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. वो तो हमने अज्यूम किया ना उस तरह से कि उसको जीरो मान लिया. MUM नहीं, MUX को जीरो किए थे. MUM तो 2 मान रहे थे थ्रू आउट. हाँ, तो MUX 0 हो सकता है जहां पे तुम कमोडिटी से सेटिस्फैक्शन भी नहीं डिराइव कर रहे हो और डिससेटिस्फाइड भी नहीं हो. That's what I'm saying. You will need to find an exceptional human to say that my MUM is now 0. But it's possible always. All right. Yes, yes. Right, but in that case the demand is perfectly inelastic, but they need money. So if somebody tells me how much do you value money, the fellow, since he's a drug addict, will value it even more. वो तो कहेंगे अभी मुझे और पैसा दे दो थोड़ा. You understand that? So it's not that MUM will be 0. MUM can match the value of drug. All right. I say it exceptional because MUM 0 means you are claiming that money doesn't give me satisfaction. Now that means that you are someone who can be on some, say, spiritual path and so on, where you say that I've left the world and I don't need money. Because at the end of the day, by spiritual path, I don't mean all those people with long beards on the television screen. I don't mean them. And I don't mean any disrespect, but I don't mean them. Because those guys charge money to make you listen to them. So if somebody is charging money from me to make me listen to the person, then surely that person cannot be someone who can teach me how to leave this world. क्योंकि उन्होंने भी खुद ही नहीं छोड़ा है. तो मैं आपके सेंटिमेंट्स हर्ट नहीं करना चाहता, लेकिन मेरी ये सोच है, मुझे हमेशा ये लगता है कि कोई मुझे अगर कहते हैं कि इतने पैसे देकर आप इनको सुन सकते हैं, तो मुझे लगता है फिर तो मैं ही क्या बुरा हूँ. तो अगर पैसे देके ही सुनने की बात है, यू नो, सो दैट इज द होल पॉइंट. भगवान बुद्ध को कोई किसी को जाकर ये नहीं कहते थे कि मेरे होर्डिंग लगाओ और लोग पैसे दें और आकर बैठें, और जो आगे बैठेंगे उनको ज्यादा पैसे देने हैं, जो पीछे बैठेंगे उनको कम पैसे देने हैं, और कॉर्पोरेट डिस्काउंट भी दूंगा. You know, so it never happened with Lord Buddha. So people who actually don't value money are in that category, kind of. They are there. All right. Now you write in this diamond. मैं खत्म कर लूँ फिर आंसर कर दूँ तुम्हारा, या आप पूछ लो, चलो क्यों रोके. Yeah, let me finish the dictation and I'll give you. All right. You write diamond water paradox. Diamond water paradox arises diamond water paradox arises when necessities like water become cheaper as compared to utility, as compared to luxuries like diamond. Full stop. It arises due to the fact that consumers' decision or willingness to pay is determined not by total utility, but by marginal utility. Full stop. Marshall explained that marginal utility for luxuries falls at a lesser rate. I'm sure you understand that the marginal utility even for diamond will fall because it is still a commodity. So the law of diminishing marginal utility will apply to all commodities including diamond. So mu of even diamond falls. All right. For luxuries at a lesser rate, at a lesser rate, due to which willingness to pay for luxuries also falls at a lesser rate. Full stop. In case of necessities, marginal utility falls at a faster rate and therefore willingness to pay also falls very quickly. Full stop. Hence, at equi-marginal utility, the ratio of mu to p is equal for both the commodities but due to higher mu of diamond, its price also remains higher compared to water. You had a question. Okay, I'll tell you what the steepness would imply. Think. Suppose you take quantity here. Suppose you take mux by px here. And suppose this is falling steeply like this. Now remember, this px is constant. That means the steep fall is only because with every increase in quantity, your mu falls very quickly. It's like if you bought 1 unit, your mu could have been, let's assume px to be 1 for the sake of simplicity in calculation. So if you're at first unit, px is say, mu is say 100, and then you take the second unit and your mu falls to 50, and then you take the third unit and then your mu becomes say 20, and so on. You understand that? So that means that is your diminishing mu. On the other hand, if the same place I draw a flatter curve, then that means that on the first unit, my mu was still relatively higher. On the second unit, my mu fell, but not as much distance as what it did for the first. For the third unit, my mu fell, but again not as much as what it did here. You see that? So that is the meaning of steeper and flatter. And just to clarify for those of you who may have felt something when I taught this, when you reach this kind of a place, again with a P constant, it means that your MUX by PX is not changing with change in output. And that will only happen when MUX becomes 0. And we assume it doesn't become negative. If we assume it becomes negative, then it will go down into the negative zone or something. You understand that? So that kind of a thing can happen, or it can happen that you may reach a situation when price is 10, MUX reaches 10, and there is a certain human whose MUX doesn't go below 10. And then your MUX by PX tends like this. But if you ask me what happens in real world, this goes down like this and gradually becomes asymptotic to this x-axis. Alright, that is the real world scenario. That this will keep going down और धीरे धीरे ये seemingly touch करता रहेगा x-axis को, ऐसा लगेगा कि x-axis को touch कर रहा है, जिसे हम asymptotic बोलते हैं. Alright, that it will start becoming asymptotic to the x-axis. It will seemingly look as if it is touching the x-axis. Alright, so that is the basic idea to keep in mind. Remember one thing that some of your friends have asked me here. No, we are assuming it for the sake of simplicity. Otherwise it can be negative. There is no problem in that. Now, I'll just take a second. Give me 1 minute. There is one question that one of your friend asks me, that only willingness to pay is considered, ability to pay doesn't come into picture. So remember, ability to pay doesn't come into picture with demand theories. This is a wrong thing taught at 12th standard level, later on copied and carried forward by others. How do you define the demand curve? You don't define the demand curve as ability to pay. It is always your willingness to pay. Alright, ability was never in picture for Marshall. Marshall never said that you should be able to buy this. Preferences are not about ability. Preferences are about my willingness. You ask me that, sir, how much do you want to, what kind of life do you want? I can say, oh, I can go for a cruise holiday and I would love to have 5 Rolls Royce and 10 houses. And then you will say, how much is your income? I'll say, come, let's study. You understand that? So my willingness to pay is the concern here. My preferences are always about willingness. They are never about the actual amount I have to pay. Always keep that in mind. Also remember, there is another thing that, I hope Prachi you got it, the marginal utility for diamond will fall in real life for as much as you love it because of the law of diminishing marginal utility. Now remember one more thing, that marginal utility, one question asked is, that is marginal utility guided by the level of one's income? Understand this, ये समझना जरूरी है. Marginal utility income से guide होगा जैसे ही तुम ये बात मानोगे, तुमने preferences को sideline करना शुरू किया. So marginal utility is an idea of preferences. Marginal utility will be guided by preferences, not by income necessarily. I'll tell you why. You can be a very rich person and you may still have different marginal utility for different product. I can be a very poor person. I may still have different marginal utility for different products. And my marginal utility from some products might be higher than yours. You understand that? That you will realize when you make me rich. The point is that you give me money and then I'll tell you how much I would have loved to buy it. So income tells you the constraint. I'm deliberately taking these questions because they will clarify your concepts properly. Remember, income is about constraint. So always remember that. Income tells you what is the constraint you are facing in making demand decision. Right now, we are not talking about constraint. We are only saying what determines the demand value. All right. If you have high utility, then marginal utility will be, the curve will shift upwards. But I couldn't follow your question, Sanket, if you could reframe it. Again, MU doesn't depend on price we pay. Please keep this all clarified. MU doesn't depend on price we pay. MU depends on the preference we have for a commodity, the satisfaction we derive. The price we pay will depend on what MU I derive from a commodity. But my utility from a commodity is independent of the price I have to pay for it. All right? It's possible my utility is high, I will be willing to pay a high price. Utility low, I will be willing to pay a lesser price for it. So please keep that in mind also. If PX is 0, it means free goods. Then you can have a lovely life. It can have an infinite slope in that case. No, MUM was not 0 for 500 and 1000 rupee notes in demonetization, Anusha. In those days, those notes became not money. So now there is no question of comparing it to money in that sense. Tell me one thing, I ask you this question, is MUM, marginal utility of money, higher for poor as compared to rich? Yeah? Marginal utility of money will be higher for poor as compared to rich? It's not necessary at all. Okay, think like this. Even if I become very rich, if I have strong preference for money, my marginal utility from money will still remain high. And if I am poor and I have less preference for money, my utility for money will become still very low. All right. If by chance you are still in confusion, I will make you meet the person who drives my car. The fellow's marginal utility for money is very low. He practically wants to buy everything in this world. तो उनको कुछ भी दिखता है वो खरीद लेते हैं. मैं उनसे कहीं पूछता भी हूँ उसका यूटिलिटी क्या है तुम्हारे लिए, सर अच्छा लगा मुझे बहुत. तो ठीक है, तो उनका MUM काफी लो है इसका मतलब. So that is also the basic idea that richness and poverty will not have a huge impact. Yes, if you make somebody absolute rich where income stops mattering, that's a separate story altogether. Satisfaction you get by losing 1 rupee or gaining 1 rupee. Well, so okay, so if it is low, it means that you are getting less satisfaction from money. You are more willing to spend it in that case. Money doesn't give you as much satisfaction as maybe what other goods can. Then you would be willing to spend it more, isn't it? To gain more satisfaction. You'll get something else in return. Another question one of your friend asks me is that can we say with increase in income, MU of money falls? Should the market allow for whatever one is willing to pay? The market, let me discuss it with you. It's not about what market allows. It's about both demand and supply mixing with each other. So please take care of that. For necessities, when MU is lower, the value of money that is MUM gets higher. No, that is not the truth. The point is, for necessities, the MU is lower, and you buy it depending on whether you would like to have more of that commodity or not. Satisfaction is high or not. MU is low means your willingness to pay is low because you don't get enough satisfaction from it. So just take necessities as that and nothing else. Preferences are guided by the utility you derive, and that's the subjective part. That was the criticism of cardinal utility, that they made it objective. And willingness will mean the willingness to consume commodities. All right, ability to pay and marginal utility of money are not related. Please keep that in mind. Also remember, all these things are static model, so never apply it on a dynamic system. Diamond water paradox, static model. Static situation, this might happen. A dynamic situation, as I told you, you might find yourself in the middle of Kalahari. You will value water much more, without any doubt. So they're all static. Now, I just wanted to tell you one thing there. And that's why I spend too much time on these things, because these points have to be very much clear in your mind. Preferences, utility, satisfaction are concepts which are not affected by your income, not affected by your background, not affected by your surroundings. They are actually affected by what you have developed within yourself over a period. Now, income and all can affect your choice. Please listen to my words carefully. Preferences are not affected by income. Choice can be affected by income. क्या खरीदे तुम वो इनकम पे निर्भर करता है, क्योंकि तुम इनकम के अंदर ही खरीद सकते हो. So that is why a little while back I was telling you, income is a constraint. इनकम तुम्हें ये बताता है कि आपकी रुकावट क्या है, खरीद कितना सकते हो. लेकिन इनकम ये नहीं डिफाइन करता कि तुम्हारी डिजायर क्या है. यूटिलिटी इज डिजायर, प्रेफरेंसेस आर डिजायर. तुम्हारी इच्छा क्या है, कितना खरीदना चाहते हो. अब कितना खरीदना चाहते हो को इस बात से मतलब नहीं है कितना खरीद सकते हो. हाउ मच डू यू वांट टू बाय is not concerned about how much you can buy. The expression is how much are you willing to buy, how much are you willing to pay. I hope this part will remain with you, because when I'll connect it to supply, I'll need you to be clearer on this. All right. Another factor I need you to be clearer upon is that when you talk about the ratio mu by p or mu by mum, the idea is just to convert it in a manner where you get a valuation done for it. That's it. Mu by p, utility derived per rupee paid. Mux by mum, how much satisfaction I derive from 1 unit of a commodity in terms of money. All right, and then that will decide how much I am willing to pay for it. Do I believe we are okay on that? All right, let's take the story further now. If you see there will be some criticisms in your notes, you can take them out. And again, मैं तुमसे borrow कर लेता हूँ, तुम दोस्त के साथ share कर लो. मैंने अपने notes आप बाहर बैग में रखे हुए हैं, लेकिन मैं जाऊँगा तो 5 मिनट lose करेंगे हम लोग. All right, so if you could see it there, the criticism part. And just few more things for you. You can start reading on few things. That is, ये जो MUM, MUX की बात मैं कर रहा था, single commodity and all. Up page, I mean, when you come into the cardinal utility discussion, ordinal utility, consumers equilibrium, cardinal utility, you see the next part, where you will see cardinal utility, Alfred Marshall, J.R. Hicks. थोड़ा आगे चलते चले जाओ, अपने notes को आगे बढ़ाओ, आपको मिलेंगी वो बातें. This is page 2 of the next part. It will look something like this. Just go ahead to the next part, you will find it. All right? In that case, in that section, if you want to read more on utility and all, pages 2, 3, 4, 5, all these places, 6, you will get the same things again, you can read through. 2 to around 7, or 2 to around 9. So you can read through that, you will get single commodity, double commodity. In some more detail, you will get that. All right, 2 to 9, 10 around. So if you want, you can read through that. That is on consumers equilibrium, cardinal utility, and so on. So you will get it across. Ordinal utility we will do in the class, and I will be dictating few things to you. So major part I have not given you in the notes. We will be covering it in the class mainly, because I want to take it slow when I teach you indifference curves and all. All right, now coming back to the previous part, if you could come to page 6 of the first notes, page 6, criticism of Marshallian demand, or the law of equimarginal utility, the criticism part. The first criticism is that assumption of cardinal utility is not realistic. Assumption of cardinal utility is not realistic. Now that's true. You cannot assume utility to be cardinal, all right? Because you can't define it objectively. ठीक है? Your util can be different from my util, but what is util? अब सोच के देखिए, कोई आपसे पूछेगा util मतलब क्या? पता नहीं. Satisfaction कितना? पता नहीं. So objective definition is not possible, and that was criticism 1, that cardinality itself is a problem. The second part I explained to you yesterday. Utility is additive. Now utility in real world doesn't remain additive. All right? In real world there will be complements. In real world there will be imperfect substitutes, and there the utility will not be additive. All right? The third thing was MUM does not remain constant. All right? अब वहाँ बस add कर लो. You just add it over there. It changes. I'm making you write it in the third point. MUM does not remain constant. In that you write, it changes with amount of money with an individual at any point of time. It changes with amount of money with an individual for any point of time. Now, theory of wantlessness is different, Saurabh. Don't need to go that side. But just now I said rich people don't value money necessarily less than the poor's. Is it a contradiction? Or can you see some word in that which doesn't make it a contradiction? There is no contradiction because I'm using the word individual. Alright, there is no contradiction because I'm using the word individual. My marginal utility for money will rise if my income goes down, and my marginal utility for money will fall if my income goes up. But that doesn't necessarily mean that my utility and your utility have to be dependent on whether we are rich and poor. You can be a rich person with a very high marginal utility of money, rich person with very high marginal utility of money, your income comes down, you can be still richer than me, but your marginal utility of money can rise even further. I can be a poor person with a low marginal utility of money, my income goes up and my utility can become still lesser even though I can be poorer than you. Do I reach you on this last line? आप एक अमीर आदमी हो सकते हो, आपकी मार्जिनल यूटिलिटी ऑफ मनी से फिर भी बहुत हाई है, मैं एक गरीब आदमी हो सकता हूं, मेरी मार्जिनल यूटिलिटी ऑफ मनी फिर भी लो है. अब आपकी इनकम अगर कम हुई तो आपकी मार्जिनल यूटिलिटी ऑफ मनी और हाई हो जाएगी, जबकि आप अभी भी मुझसे अमीर हो, और मेरी इनकम अगर बढ़ गई तो मेरी मार्जिनल यूटिलिटी फॉर मनी कम हो जाएगी, जबकि मैं अभी भी आपसे गरीब हूं. तो इंडिविजुअल्स पे ये मैटर करता है, इंटरपर्सनल कंपैरिजन पे मैटर नहीं करता. Alright, so when I give you the theory that marginal utility for money remains different for different people, that's true. But marginal utility for money can change for the same person with different levels of income, that's also true. Do I believe I reach you on this? So I just made you write that is why, that marginal utility for money can change as a person becomes rich or poor. But that doesn't mean you can do interpersonal comparison on that. Alright? And then we have a fourth criticism. Marshallian demand could not explain Giffen goods or Veblen goods. You know, whatever was not explained by law of demand, Marshall could not explain it. Marshall called them exceptional. He said they are abstruse, we can't explain them, because he did not have an income effect and substitution effect in his hand. All right? मार्शल को इनकम इफेक्ट और सब्स्टिट्यूशन इफेक्ट का आइडिया नहीं था, तो मार्शल एक्सप्लेन नहीं कर पा रहे थे. मार्शल ने बोला अरे लॉ ऑफ डिमिनिशिंग एमयू तो हर जगह होता है, तो इन कमोडिटीज पे अगर नहीं वर्क कर रहा तो ये एक्सेप्शनल केसेस हैं, अनएक्सप्लिकेबल. But they're not inexplicable, they can be explained, but Marshall took it as that. Why? Because according to Marshall, the whole idea of law of demand was based on law of diminishing marginal utility. So whichever product did not satisfy law of diminishing marginal utility could not satisfy the law of demand for Marshall. All right. So you just write in that, this was because law of demand is based on law of DMU in Marshall's analysis. All right. One of your friends suggests online, but then the companies ask us to offer satisfaction on a scale of 1 to 10. And imagine the subjectivity you are deriving. Okay, let me make a situation for you. You are going on a date, you are very happy on that date, you are in a restaurant, you are eating a food. Now you're pretty happy because of the date, and the date is going great, and your food is now getting over. You have to pay the bill. The waiter comes, gives you the card and says, sir, please rate us on 1 to 10. You're in a great mood, not because of the food that you didn't even bother about, but because of the date, and you start ranking it pretty high. 8, 9, I had a great experience, what was the ambience, wonderful, and so on. And let's change the situation. You were on a date where your date left you in between, and now you are paying the bill all on your own. And now the waiter comes and says, same food, same situation, or same place. And now the waiter says, sir, how was your experience? Food doesn't matter there. So please understand that. All those 1 to 10 ratings that corporates ask us to do is a heavy function of what mood we are in. And if you want to read more about that, read books like Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. You know what Daniel Kahneman was an economics Nobel laureate 2002. Kahneman has a very interesting experiment that he did. He said he made 100 people sit. He's a professor at Philadelphia, at Chicago these days. He says he made 100 people sit at one place, gave them a problem to solve, and made sure that the light is put in such a way that they frown. ऐसे बैठे हुए हैं 100 लोगों को, और उनको 10 क्वेश्चन दिए सॉल्व करने को. And he made another 100 people sit in the other corner and made the lighting in such a way that they were made to smile. They were not smiling mentally, but they were smiling physically. जैसे होता है ना, बैठे हुए ऐसे करके जैसे बैठना पड़ रहा है, अब क्या करें, शक्ल स्माइल वाली बनी हुई है. And then he said that among people who were made to frown, again remember they were not frowning. It was just the light which was making them frown. And the other group was not smiling. It was just the light which was making them smile. And he said that among the group which was frowning, 72% people could not solve the problem on time, and 31% among them also could not solve it correctly. And among the group which was smiling, 80% could solve it on time, and among those who solved it on time, more than 60 got it correct. Same problem, people with similar IQ, just given different positions and asked to sit with different mood symptoms that they were signaling to their brain. So that is humans for you. That is us. So we got to be very careful that how we think, what do we do, and that is Daniel Kahneman was the Guruji of Richard Thaler, who then wrote Nudge, for which he got the Nobel Prize in 2016 or 17, I think. So Richard Thaler was again a behavioral economist. So behavioral economics is going places in that human behavior of ranking, etc., at times becomes partial because it is affected by multiple factors. मैं क्लास कर रहा हूँ, कुछ तुम्हें समझा रहा हूँ, मेरी क्लास तुम्हें बहुत अच्छी लग जाएगी अगर तुम फिट हो, चीजें ठीक हैं, समझ पा रहे हो, और सडनली ईश्वर ना करे, गॉड फॉरबिड, लेकिन तुम्हारे सिर में एक दर्द शुरू हो जाए. मैं कितना भी अच्छा पढ़ा लूं, सिर दर्द तुम्हें परेशान कर रहा है. बीच में हो सकता है उठना पड़े तुम्हें. तुम्हारा सर, आई हैव टू टेक योर एक्सक्यूज, बाय बाय. सेम क्लास, रैंकिंग नाउ, जाते हुए तुम्हें कोई बाहर पकड़े, अच्छा रैंक तो करते जाओ, 0. सिर में दर्द हो रहा है, ये कह रहे रैंक करते जाओ. So please be careful there. That is why it is important that when people say that you rank something objective subjectively in order to give you things, difficult. But again remember, 1 to 10 marking नहीं कर सकते, ranking कर सकते हो, and that was the ordinal utility theory. Ordinal utility theory said you cannot mark it value, but you can rank. If somebody says how was your experience, good, bad, ugly, you can still say. If somebody says how much was your experience, that becomes difficult to quantify. I hope I reach you on that. Saurabh had asked me that question online, so I was just trying to answer it for everyone. That please keep it in mind that this is a tricky thing, that when hotel owners or anybody tells us, give us marks, give us points, that's very sad. That is why your marks in 10th, 12th, irrelevant. Accident half of the time. I'm not saying it's bad, but think of it. How do you distinguish when a professor marks you, 12th standard, a professor marks you 9 out of 10 in one of the articles you wrote, 9.5 on 10 in one of the articles you wrote, and 10 on 10 in the same article you wrote. Even the professor wouldn't know, give the fellow the same article 3 days later. वही आर्टिकल उनको 3 दिन बाद दो और देखो कि वही एग्जैक्टली मार्क्स देते हैं या नहीं. ये एक्सपेरिमेंट भी करके हम लोग MIT में देख चुके हैं, नहीं दे पाए. We did it at MIT just 2 years back. We took the corrected papers of professors, subjective papers, and evaluated them, secretly collected the marks, then we put a whitener on the marks, and then we gave the paper back to them and tell them, please evaluate it for us. The variation was as high as 30% in many cases. That is human subjectivity for you. It depends on many factors around you. That can make a difference. अभी इस रूम के टेम्परेचर को 15 पे पहुंचा देते हैं, और तुम देखना, तुम 10 बार घड़ी देखोगे और 11वीं बार मुझे कहोगे सर मुझे लगता है आज की क्लास यही बंद करनी चाहिए. Understand that. So human preferences change with time, change with circumstances, and change with the internal mental thing which is happening around them. You know, that is why one factor that you need to, and God willing, you guys become a bureaucrat. I have become a professor. But one factor you need to develop with whomsoever you are interacting with is try developing likability first of all to get some trust from the people. If you don't trust me, then I can speak all this and you are not trusting. तुम अज्यूम करके बैठे हो, नहीं बोल रहे मेरा कुछ गड़बड़ हो जाएगा, मेरे साथ कुछ गड़बड़ हो जाएगा, तुम्हारे साथ पक्का हो जाएगा, और तुम्हारे ही साथ होगा, बाकी लोगों का पेपर सही हो जाएगा. वो निकले जाएंगे हमारा तो ठीक हुआ, मेरा पता नहीं कैसा हो गया. तुमने रोज प्रोग्राम किया ना खुद को कि मेरे साथ होगा कुछ. तो मेटाफिजिक्स नहीं बोल रहा हूं, ये एक्चुअल ह्यूमन बिहेवियर है विच हैज बीन एक्सपेरिमेंटेड एंड रिजॉल्व्ड. We have seen this happening in economics, especially in behavioral economics, because people have responded. I am repeating again. Read books like that, like Thinking Fast and Slow, and you will actually get a wonderful insight into how humans actually behave in ranking, in preferences, etc. Different places, different preferences. They start behaving like that. You know, put a dustbin at every place, and suddenly you create a Swachh Bharat. People wouldn't throw it down. They know they have a dustbin in front of you. Some people can still do it habitually, but it will take time to go, but gradually it will improve. Don't put a dustbin, people start doing that. Put a dustbin when the child is 2 years old, 3 years old, and develop the child in that manner. अच्छा एक example देता हूँ आपको, उसमें भी मैं. तुम बचपन से तुम्हें लोगों ने कपड़े पहना दिए, तो तुम्हें कपड़े पहनने की आदत हो गई. आज कपड़े पहन के निकलते हो बाहर. You won't go without clothes. And I'm not joking, believe me. You know, मैं कुछ serious बात आपसे डिस्कस कर रहा हूँ. बचपन से ये भी तो सिखाया हाथ धो के खाना खाना चाहिए, उसकी आदत क्यों नहीं पड़ी? कोविड ने डलवा दी बहुत लोगों को आदत. बट 90% ऑफ पीपल आई यूज्ड टू सी दे वुडंट वॉश देयर हैंड बिफोर ईटिंग टिल एटलीस्ट बिफोर कोविड. बट बचपन से सिखाया था यू शुड वॉश योर हैंड बिफोर यू ईट. नहीं आदत पड़ी. यू शुड ब्रश योर टीथ बिफोर यू ईट. बहुत लोगों को नहीं आदत है. सुबह उठ के पहले टी लेंगे, बिस्किट लेंगे, फिर ब्रश करने जाएंगे. तो ये आदत क्यों नहीं है, यही समझाना चाह रहा हूं आपको. ये ह्यूमन प्रेफरेंसेस हैं, ह्यूमंस एज दे डिजाइन्ड देमसेल्व्स. तो बचपन से आपको आदत जलवाई किसी ने. somebody sat with you and said look wear the clothes and then go. So you said yeah true, I should wear the clothes, otherwise I would be feeling shamed about it. हाथ धोने पे किसी ने shame नहीं बताया. टीचर्स ने बोला. अगर वही सोचो, आप में से कुछ लोग ऐसे स्कूल्स में पढ़े होंगे, मैं भी ऐसे एक स्कूल में था जहां टीचर्स लाइन लगवा के ले जाते थे खाना खिलाने के लिए, बाहर ले जाने के लिए, कुछ दिनों तक हाथ धुलवाने के लिए भी. बट दैट वाज टिल क्लास 1, क्लास 2, देन इट स्टॉप्ड. प्रेफरेंसेस चेंज्ड. सो बी वेरी केयरफुल. Preferences are a function of human evolution, how humans evolve, and quantifying preferences is a big challenge, always. They cannot be quantified. Even in a static situation, you may behave differently to different situations. All right, I just wanted you to have full clarity on this. Now, there is one, and one more thing. Marshallian demand was completely silent with respect to discrete goods. Mind you, discrete goods are those which cannot be bought in fractions. So imagine, मैं कुछ draw करता हूं, उम्मीद है आप समझ जाओगे. If this is 1 that I can buy, 2 and 3, is it possible then to have a demand curve like this? These are not defined, don't forget. Suppose this is refrigerator. 1.5 refrigerator कैसे लाओगे? So how will you say, I am willing to pay 100 rupees for one refrigerator and I am willing to pay 50 rupees for 1.5 refrigerator? Where will this come from in the first place? Law of diminishing marginal utility assumed continuity of demand. But in discrete goods, continuity gets broken. You understand that? Discrete goods continuous हो ही नहीं सकते ना, discrete हैं. So it will be 1 and then 2 and then 3 and there is nothing in there in between these. So you will say my willingness to pay is this much. Some of you might have read Mankiw, you would have seen things like these. My willingness to pay is this much for commodity 1. And then for second unit, I am willing to pay say this much. You understand that? But will there be anything between P1 and P2 that I am willing to pay? It's only for the second unit. तो second unit से शुरू होगा ना? Willing to pay this much. Rest of the things क्या हैं? Discontinuous. But Marshall had no answer for all this. For Marshall, you will be having a diminishing MU. Even for 1.0001 unit, 1.02 unit, 1.05 unit. But 1.05, 1.01 assumes the commodities are continuous and they can be demanded continuously. Discrete goods cannot be demanded continuously, like refrigerator, like car, etc. So the later on economists assumed that, all right, let's take an assumption that even if a good is discrete, it can be defined in continuous terms. That was a later on economist definition taken. That even if goods are discrete, they can be defined in continuous terms. So Marshallian theory could not explain it, but later on the economists took an assumption that even if goods are discrete, they can be defined in continuous terms. Do I believe I'm reaching you on this? All right. Then see, I'll just take a second. You take one more criticism, you please write below that. Sixth point, ye le lo. Sixth point, Marshallian theory was not able to explain commodities with special preferences, like perfect substitutes, perfect complement, quasi-linear utility forms, etc. I will explain this point to you when I am discussing ordinal utility theory with you. All right, these points you will get me better. Perfect substitutes, perfect complements, quasi-linear, when I'm discussing ordinal utility. Right now, since I have not discussed ordinal utility, they may not seem familiar to you immediately, but we will be discussing these utility forms. You will get clearer. But the idea is, if two commodities are perfect substitutes, again, Marshall would not have an answer to it. Two commodities are perfect complements, Marshall did not have an answer to it. All right, that was the point here. Now see, this was Marshall's demand form. The supply function for Marshall was a normal supply function. Yes, sorry. नहीं, rationality की criticism हम लोग नहीं करते, क्योंकि ये assumption expected होता है that humans can have that. All humans may not have it, but some humans may have it. इसीलिए criticize नहीं किया जाता. All right. Okay. Then you, yes. Yeah, so it's again when you say necessity or inferior, inferior and superior can become a question of, again, how you look at them from income's point of view. They are not preferences. Yeah, so that's again preference wise, it is somebody can prefer the non-basmati rice from basmati rice. All right, but necessities and luxuries are preferences. All right, now see, you just give write a line below that. Ashfaq, because they don't follow law of demand. Okay, who will tell me this? Why law of diminishing MU doesn't work for Giffen goods? We can say that, Shrishti. Please check the lecture yesterday, Raghav. We had discussed the utilities additive part. If you could check the lecture yesterday, you will see that. Okay, yes. Why is yes? And why does that happen? Okay. Okay, you are not wrong. They started buying bread more. That was what Robert Giffen found. Yes, yes. Okay, fair enough. Actually the positive income effect dominates the negative substitution effect. And I'll teach you that. You know, I'll tell you what happens. When something is a Giffen good, it's a poor quality inferior good. Now since it's a poor, I'm telling you the economics of it. Since it's a poor quality inferior good, people are already consuming it in duress. मजबूरी में खरीद रहे हैं. So it's a poor quality inferior good purchased in duress. Now its price starts rising one day. People realize that this price rise implies there is some problem in the economy and we should make sure that we buy enough so that we don't have to buy at a higher price later on. And they start buying more of it. And due to that, with a rise in price, demand rises. Similarly, when the price of a given good falls, people feel that the price of this commodity is falling. It's a poor quality commodity. Its price is falling. I'm saving money because of its price is falling. If I buy less of this commodity, then I can save even more money and I can use that extra money to buy a normal commodity. You understand that? So that is the basic idea of why given goods show inverse relation. Alright, given goods show a direct relation with demand. एक पुअर क्वालिटी राशन शॉप के राइस की बात सोच लो, उसमें मान लो उसमें कंकड़ ज्यादा है, राइस कम है. अब एक गरीब आदमी है, वो 20 किलो राइस खरीदते हैं, 3 रुपया पर केजी, 60 रुपीज देते हैं मार्केट में उस राइस के लिए हर महीने. इस राइस की प्राइस 2 रुपीज पर केजी हो गई. अब इनको 20 केजी में 2 रुपीज पर केजी होने पे 40 रुपीज खर्च होंगे. इनके मन में आता है 20 रुपए तो मेरे बच ही रहे हैं, अगर मैं 5 केजी और कम खरीद लूं तो मेरे और पैसे बच जाएंगे, और वो जो पैसे बचेंगे उनको यू ऐड करके मैं कुछ और अच्छी चीज जैसे पल्सेस या वेजिटेबल खरीद लूंगा, तो वो राइस खरीदना कम कर देते हैं. सो दैट इज द आइडिया ऑफ गिवन गुड्स डिमांड फॉलिंग व्हेन इट्स प्राइस फॉल्स. You understand that? That's the economics of it. But of course, theoretically we can always show, and that is what it means when we say that the income effect dominates the substitution effect. Rice has become cheaper, so I should substitute other things with rice. But the rise in my purchasing power by giving up rice has become even higher. So my income effect dominates the substitution effect. But when I teach you ordinal utility, I'll bring it back. But that's the story. How about Veblen goods? Veblen goods are goods for conspicuous consumption, show off. Again, remember, their value lies in high price. People buy them to show to the world that they are rich. So if the price of these commodities fall, then there is nothing that will show that people are rich by buying these commodities, and that will mean demand will fall. That is called value creation. Again, that is why a little while back I was telling you that for few things value is created to make them sound plush, so that people can be attracted to buying it. You have to convince the rich that if you buy this, then you will be considered rich. Then the rich start buying it, because they will be considered rich if they buy it. You understand that? For example, many people buy iPhone without knowing all its features. But they buy it because they want to be considered rich. Many people buy a Mercedes without knowing the features of Mercedes, but they want to be considered rich. So for them it's a Veblen good, but if you're buying an iPhone knowing its features so that you can use it, or if you're buying a Mercedes knowing its features, then that good is not a Veblen good for you. So again the microeconomics part comes in. Individuals will choose whether it's Veblen or Giffen or etc. and etc. You understand that? So that is the way always to think on these things. Okay, now you write in this, no, marginal utility for water will still be low. Water is given for free to people as a sign of welfare state kind of a thing. But water is free not because water is free because the government is giving it for free. Otherwise, how do you give treated water for free? Your MUs will still be the same. The money doesn't matter there. Okay, let's say if water is for free, will it make a difference to how much water you drink at a time? It won't make a difference because your utility from water is well defined. You understand that? मान लो 4 रोटी खा के तुम्हारा पेट भर जाता है, तुम्हें फ्री में भी रोटी दें तो 4 के बाद 5वां तो नहीं खाने वाले हो. पेट भर गया, अभी पेट दर्द थोड़ी करा लोगे अपना. Because it's not, that is my point, that you will relate, if it is for free, then that will mean that for that commodity, your marginal utility for money is set 2, and now water is given for free to you. So that is telling you that you can buy as much water or take as much water as what takes that utility of water to 0. Wherever your MU of water becomes 0, till then you will keep taking water because money is not a constraint for you anymore. Alright, that is the aspect on this. Alright, now see, and that is why subsidies should be given carefully. Because when you subsidize, you are incentivizing people to consume more. So what are you incentivizing people to consume more should be something we should be careful about. Okay, now you write below this, Marshall considered, Marshall, in the same thing, just change the paragraph. I'm taking you into Marshallian equilibrium now. Marshall considered supply curve to be upward sloping because it will result in higher profit availability at higher price for the consumer. At higher price for the consumer. Yes, Rishabh, you are correct in your assessment. Now see, let's see this. I can believe that you have read NCERT and you know the supply curve in general. Alright, I'm just introducing Marshallian equilibrium idea to you because that is different from what NCERT gives you. NCERT gives you the Walrasian equilibrium idea. When you read micro NCERT and they give you market equilibrium, they give you Walrasian equilibrium idea. Marshall's equilibrium idea was separate. So, you give a subheading, market equilibrium in case of Marshall's analysis. Market equilibrium in case of Marshall's analysis. Now see, if we take quantity and we take price and we take, by DD I mean the demand curve and with SS I mean the supply curve. Alright, whenever you see me writing DD, I mean demand. And whenever you see me writing SS, I mean supply. Now please understand this. And I'll give you a write-up, but I need you to understand me first. So Marshall's equilibrium was a quantity determined equilibrium. Marshall का equilibrium price से determined नहीं था, quantity से determined था. Alright, Marshall's equilibrium was not determined by price value, but by quantity. How was that? Let's see. Understand this. Suppose if you are over here at an output level Q1, then this point A represents the point on demand curve and this is consumers' willingness to pay. Alright? I'll make you write everything, but I need you to see this first. So, at a point like Q1, this is consumers' willingness to pay. Why? Shown by the demand curve. That if you tell a consumer, how much are you willing to pay for these many output? The consumer said, look, I'm willing to pay this PCW, price that the consumer is willing to pay. On the other hand, at the same level of output, this is producer's willingness to sell. All right, the supply curve. प्रोड्यूसर बोलते हैं अगर आप मुझसे खरीदना चाहते हो तो मैं मिनिमम इतना चाहूंगा, कंज्यूमर कहते हैं मैं मैक्सिमम इतना देना चाहता हूं. डिमांड कर्व शोज द मैक्सिमम विलिंगनेस टू पे ऑफ द बायर एंड सप्लाई कर्व शोज द मिनिमम विलिंगनेस टू चार्ज ऑफ द सेलर. You understand that? So the consumer says the maximum I'm willing to pay is this PWC, and the producer says the minimum I'm willing to charge is this PWP. That means consumer is willing to pay more than what the producer is willing to charge. Will they trade more or not? Yes, consumer will say bring more, producer will say why not? So on quantity axis you start moving like this. As you start moving with higher quantity, consumer's willingness to pay will fall. All right? And producer will be now willing to charge more and more because with higher quantity, the marginal cost is rising. So the producer says, give me more price. Consumer says, I'll give you less price. And all this will continue till you reach this point, which we can call QE, where you reach a price PE, where consumer's willingness to pay at QE is same as producer's willingness to charge at PE. Do I believe you understand this? That means what I'm trying to tell you is, if at any given quantity, if at any given quantity in the market, consumers' willingness to pay is higher than producers' willingness to charge, then quantity traded will increase. Quantity traded will increase in the market. All right? In any market, that's the story I just told you. That in any market, if consumers' willingness to pay is higher than producers' willingness to charge, the quantity traded will increase in the market. Yes, Praful, you are right. Now see, as quantity traded becomes more, okay, you complete this and I will take you further. Yes, yes. Yeah. No, for the producer, I said consumer, please make it producer, all of you. It will make, in the supply curve part of Marshall, the last word should be producer and not consumer. Higher profit for the producer at higher price. It should be producer and not consumer. Okay, do I assume you have written it till here? That if at any given quantity in the market, consumer's willingness to pay is higher than producer's willingness to charge, the quantity demanded with traded will increase in the market. All right, quantity traded will increase in the market. All right, then you can take the rise in quantity traded, the rise in quantity traded rise in quantity traded will result in reducing willingness to pay, and the basic idea is law of DMU, that as quantity traded is rising, I'm getting more, my willingness to pay is falling. So reducing willingness to pay and increasing willingness to charge, full stop. It continues till you can call it point E, till point E, where quantity in the market is such that both producers and consumers, that is, both producers and consumers have same willingness to charge or pay respectively. Do I believe you understand this? Remember, the other way around holds the same way again. Think, if you are at a point like Q2, now again your willingness to pay can be this A dash, a willingness to charge, but your willingness to pay is B dash vertically. See the graph? Vertically. So consumer is willing to pay this much, but producer is willing to charge this. Alright? And that means now, I repeat again, consumer is willing to pay this much and producer is willing to charge this, which implies now that the trade will start falling because consumer is willing to pay lesser than what the producer is willing to charge. And in such case, trade will come down. And as trade comes down, the producers will be willing to charge less and the consumers will be willing to pay more, and it will continue till you reach equilibrium. You understand that? I'm just making you write that. You just put an A dash and B dash here and you write, similarly, if quantity traded becomes higher than my sympathies are with all of you sitting that side. Quantity traded becomes higher than equilibrium quantity. कल कोई मुझसे पूछ रहा था ना नेगेटिव एक्सटर्नैलिटी. हाँ बस आज आप थोड़ा, हाँ जिनको पढ़ने में कम मन लग रहा है उनके लिए पॉजिटिव एक्सटर्नैलिटी. तो आज आप ईश्वर ने आपकी सुन ली कि आप, तो मैं आपको साक्षात बताता हूँ क्या होता है. All right, let's see this. So quantity traded is higher than equilibrium quantity, then willingness to pay of consumer is higher All right. Is higher than willingness to नहीं छुट्टी तो मैं नहीं दूंगा तुम लोग ओके आप एक करेक्शन कर लो विलिंगनेस टू पे इज लेसर कर लेना वहां willingness to pay of consumer is lesser कर लो उसे please. Online people, please don't get worried. We are actually having a farewell nearby, so that is why all this laugh. Online के लोग सोच रहे होंगे इनको क्या काटा अभी अभी. You know, what hit them? Why are these guys behaving like this? You know, so all right. All right. So willingness to willingness to pay of consumer is lesser than willingness to charge of producer willingness to charge of producer which results in reducing quantity traded full stop. With fall in quantity traded, comma, willingness to charge falls, and willingness to pay rises. And it continues till equilibrium is attained at point E. I want you to notice something here, which I hope most of you would have already noticed. If I am disturbing output or quantity from equilibrium, it's coming back to it. All right? If we are disturbing the quantity from equilibrium, it's coming back to it, and therefore we call it a stable equilibrium. Whenever we talk about a stable equilibrium is you change the position of equilibrium, but the market will bring it back. All right? So we changed it from QE to Q1. The market brought it back to QE. We changed it from QE to Q2. The market brought it back to QE. All right. So whenever you come back to where you were, that is an equilibrium which you call as a stable equilibrium. So the moral of the story then is that if you have a normal demand curve, downward sloping, and a normal supply curve, upward sloping, then Marshallian equilibrium is stable. Do I believe you understand that? If you have a normal demand curve, I just drew a downward sloping demand curve, and if you have a normal supply curve, upward sloping supply curve, then Marshallian equilibrium is stable. You disturb the market, remove it away from equilibrium, the market will still make its way through, come back into equilibrium. Do I believe you understand that? I'm making you write it, please take it down. You write, therefore it can be concluded that with downward sloping demand curve and upward sloping supply curve, with downward sloping demand curve and upward sloping supply curve, Marshallian market equilibrium is stable. Marshallian market equilibrium is stable, all right? And I can believe all of us understand stability. You disturb it from equilibrium, it will come back to it. It doesn't go away. How unstable equilibrium arises, I'll teach you that. But before that, I'm introducing you to another thing, market equilibrium. Market equilibrium in case of Walrasian analysis. Market equilibrium in case of Walrasian analysis. Walrasian. Walrasian analysis. Yes, yes. See, when the quantity demanded is less, the consumer is deriving much higher utility and producer has to incur much lesser cost. जब तुम्हें मार्केट में कम सामान है तो खरीदने की इच्छा ज्यादा होगी या कम होगी? ज्यादा होगी. क्यों? सेटिस्फैक्शन, डिमिनिशिंग एमयू की तरह सोचना. तो कम सामान है तो खरीदने की इच्छा ज्यादा है, तो इसके वजह से विलिंगनेस टू पे ज्यादा है. और जब प्रोड्यूसर को कम प्रोड्यूस करना पड़ रहा है तो उनका मार्जिनल कॉस्ट कम रहेगा, तो इसीलिए उनकी विलिंगनेस टू चार्ज ज्यादा है, कम है. ठीक है, जैसे जैसे वो ज्यादा प्रोड्यूस करेंगे उनका मार्जिनल कॉस्ट बढ़ेगा, जिससे विलिंगनेस टू चार्ज बढ़ेगा. और जैसे जैसे ये ज्यादा कंज्यूम करेंगे इनकी यूटिलिटी कम होगी, जिससे विलिंगनेस टू पे कम हो जाएगी. But imagine if market has too many things. So consumer is already having this much. अब उनको कहोगे कितना पैसा देना चाहते हो, तो कहेंगे कम देना चाहता हूं. और प्रोड्यूसर को इतना प्रोड्यूस करने में इतना खर्चा लग गया है, तो उनसे पूछते हो कितना पैसा लोगे, तो कहते हैं ज्यादा लूंगा. You understand that? So that is the basic idea of it. All right. Now see, Neon Walrus, and when I'll teach you general equilibrium, I'll bring Walrus back. But Neon Walrus was someone who happened around 30 years later than Marshall. And he gave another way of looking at equilibrium. He said equilibrium should not be looked at from point of willingness to pay, willingness to sell. Equilibrium should be looked at from the point of view of excess demand and excess supply. All right? Walrus ने बोला कि equilibrium को देखने का तरीका willingness to pay, willingness to sell नहीं होना चाहिए. Equilibrium को देखने का तरीका excess demand और excess supply होना चाहिए. अगर कोई चीज excess demand में है तो उसकी प्राइस बढ़ जाएगी, और अगर कोई चीज excess supply में है तो उनकी प्राइस कम हो जाएगी. ऐसा वॉलरस बोलते थे. और जो एनसीईआरटी में आप पढ़ते हो मार्केट इक्विलिब्रियम, वो वॉलरेशियन इक्विलिब्रियम है. All right, that walrus would say that if anything is in excess demand, the price will start rising, and if anything is in excess supply, the price will start falling. So for walrus, again the story remains similar, as in if you take quantity and you take price, and if you take the demand curve and the supply curve, now we know that this is equilibrium, a QE and PE. Walrus did not talk quantity. Walrus talked price. Please understand this. In case of Marshall, what did we discuss? If Q is higher than QE, if Q is lesser than QE. I hope you understand that. In case of Marshall, we discussed if Q is higher than QE, if Q is lesser than QE. In case of Walrus, he said if price is higher than equilibrium and if price is lower than equilibrium. You understand that? In case of Walrus, that is how he took it. If price is higher than equilibrium and if price is lower than equilibrium. As in, Walrus would say, if your price is higher than equilibrium, say P1, all right? If you have a price, so remember, in case of Marshall, the adjustments were happening on quantity axis and the price axis was responding to it. In case of Walrus, the adjustments start happening on the price axis, all right? And the quantities will adjust to that. So Walrus said, if you have price higher than equilibrium, consumers are willing to demand this much, but producers are willing to supply this much. Yes, yes. I mean, but that way quantity cannot be independent too. And why can't price do that? For example, if you have a cost of production changing, so the price can change. And similarly, if you have some extra demand coming up because of people perceiving that price will rise in future. No, no, no. Please understand this. Expectations, changes beyond demand and supply can have an impact on price. I'll give you an example. Suppose for a second government fixes this as a minimum support price. You have this situation, isn't it? Or government says this is the minimum wage law. You have a situation. You see that? So situations are possible. The external factors can influence either Q or P, any of the two. All right. So when we say D1 and S1 like this, the point is now supplier are willing to supply this much, while demanders are willing to demand this much. So this is that. Quantity demanded is lesser and quantity supplied is much more, isn't it? Now that means producers have excess supply that they are facing. You have a market with excess supply, and if you have a market with excess supply, you have a market with excess supply, and if you have a market with excess supply, the price will start falling because the producers have unsold inventory. You understand that? Producers के पास inventories हैं जो बिक नहीं रहे, वो कहेंगे प्राइस कम कर लो लेकिन खरीद लो मेरे से. तो जैसे ही मार्केट में excess supply हुआ, प्राइस गिरना शुरू होगा. As soon as the market has excess supply, producers who have unsold inventory will be willing to sell at a lesser price. Now the story goes like this, and I'll make you write the story also, don't worry. So the price starts falling. As the price starts falling, some producers who were willing to charge only a higher price and then sell in the market will now leave the market. Alright, जैसे ये प्राइस गिरने लगा, कुछ sellers जो higher price ही लेना चाहते थे, वो market छोड़कर चले जाएंगे. And as the price falls, some consumers who were willing to pay lesser price now will start entering the market. तो consumers market में आने लगे और producers market से जाने लगे. जैसे ये price बढ़ने लग गया या घटने लग गया. So as the price starts falling, consumers start entering the market. Why? Why is the consumer entering the market? Lesser price, more willingness to buy now. And producers start leaving the market because price is falling and producers don't want to sell now. Some of them who had maybe produced at a higher cost, they say, no, this price is not for me, I'm not selling it. And all this will continue till the market finally reaches an equilibrium like E. So an excess supply will push the price down and it will continue till the price reaches PE. Now this language is important. It will continue till the price reaches PE, where what the consumer is demanding matches what the producer is supplying. So we are not talking about willingness to pay and willingness to sell. We are saying what the consumer is demanding matches what the producer is supplying. And that's when you have your equilibrium. Do I believe you understand this? All right. The other way around story will also, I'll make you write this, so that is why I'm not writing anything on the board. But other way around story भी ऐसी ही चलती है. आप सोच के देखिए. If we take quantity, we take price, demand, supply, and now if this is equilibrium where they intersect, if I deliberately choose price below equilibrium, say P2, all right? If I deliberately choose price below equilibrium, say a P2, what will that imply? That will imply that producer is willing to sell this S2 and consumer is willing to demand this D2. Producer is willing to sell S2, consumer is willing to demand D2. I hope I am reaching you. Now this is a situation of excess demand. All right? This is a situation of excess demand. Excess demand means what? Some consumers who have higher marginal utility will be willing to pay more. कुछ ऐसे कंज्यूमर्स जिनकी सेटिस्फैक्शन लेवल ज्यादा है वो कहेंगे हमसे ज्यादा पैसे ले लो लेकिन सामान दे दो मुझे. Alright, some consumers who have a higher utility, they will say, look, take money from me, but supply it to me, and the price starts rising. So we will have this price starts rising. And as the price starts rising, those sellers who were not entering the market till now will start entering the market, which will mean quantity supplied will rise, and I will have upward movement on supply curve. And those consumers who were willing to buy at a lesser price will now leave the market and go, which will mean quantity demanded will fall, upward movement on demand curve. And all this will continue till I reach equilibrium. तो अगर एक्सेस सप्लाई है तो इक्विलिब्रियम कैसे करेक्ट होता है? प्राइस घट के. और एक्सेस डिमांड है तो इक्विलिब्रियम कैसे अटेन होता है? प्राइस बढ़कर. But think the movement is now on the price axis and quantity is responding to it. In Marshallian case, the movement was on the quantity axis and price was responding to it. Alright, so that's the serious difference between Marshall and Walras. They looked at things differently. Marshall looked at it from quantity point of view, Walras looked at it from prices point of view. So for Marshall it was the difference between willingness to pay and willingness to charge, and for Walras it was the difference between quantity supplied and quantity demanded. Do I believe it makes sense to you on that? I'm making you write this, please take it down. You write? हाँ, draw कर लो, जरूर. Yes. हाँ बिल्कुल आ सकता है, अभी मैं करवाऊंगा. अभी वो आ चुका भी है एक बार. No, Devyani, it's fine. A and B are also fine, not a problem. You can stay with that. Okay, so two of you asked me this question that why Walrus did not put price on the x-axis and quantity on the y-axis. Because that was not the concern. Walrus did not want to draw a demand curve and supply curve. Walrus only, a new demand curve or supply curve. Walrus was only saying that it's the price which affects the things. So let's look at it from prices point of view and not quantity point of view. That's all. All right, that is the only thing that happens. In real world, the adjustments can be either way. I mean, there is no hard and fast rule that a real world is Walrus's world or Marshall's world. In real world, the adjustments can be either way. Also remember, in real world, one assumption that we are taking while discussing this doesn't hold, that is perfect competition. All right, both these models were assuming that there is perfect competition. But in real world, that's not true. You don't necessarily have perfect competition. So in real world, you don't see many of these things, because in real world, you have monopoly or oligopoly and monopolistic competition. So that again becomes a factor. All right, in Walrus, you write, if price is lesser than, if price is higher than equilibrium, if price is higher than equilibrium, then quantity supplied is more than quantity demanded, due to which producers have unsold inventory reflected by excess supply. Full stop. This results in fall in price in the market due to which supply contracts, and please use this language because that is economics language. You don't say supply falls when price falls, you say supply contracts when price falls and demand expands when price falls. Alright, so be careful about these languages, your examiners like it when you use them. Alright, because they know that you are technically correct. Alright, एक layman लिखेंगे तो वो कहेंगे supply fall कर गया. एक economics के student लिखेंगे तो वो कहेंगे supply contract कर गया. Alright, so when price falls and supply falls, we call it contraction of supply. When price falls and demand rises, we call it expansion of demand. And similarly, when price rises and supply rises, we call it expansion of supply. And price rises and demand falls, we call it contraction of demand. So use this language, it helps at times. So you write, supply contracts and demand expands. Full stop. It continues till price reaches PE where demand matches supply. Price reaches PE where demand matches supply, that is, excess supply is zero, excess supply is zero, and market has equilibrium. Change the paragraph and write, similarly, if price is below equilibrium price, similarly, if price is below equilibrium price in the market, then there is excess demand, comma, price will start rising, as certain buyers with higher willingness to pay due to higher utility will raise the price in the market. Full stop. It will result in contraction of demand, and expansion of supply, which continues till market reaches equilibrium, at point E. Therefore, Therefore, walrus's equilibrium is also stable with upward sloping supply curve and downward sloping demand curve. डाउनवर्ड स्लोपिंग डिमांड कर्व। नहीं, मैं आपसे शेयर कर लेता हूँ। मैं इसलिए हंस रहा था क्योंकि आपकी क्लास खत्म होगी फरवरी में। जो लोग 23 में अटेम्प्ट दे रहे हो, ऐसी आवाज ऑटोमेटिकली निकल रही होगी तुम्हारी। तुम बिना कारण के भी आवाज निकाल रहे होगे उस समय में। So, आप चिंता मत करिए उसको लेकर। बिल्कुल कभी कभी क्लास में बैठे बैठे ही आवाज निकालोगे। Anyways, you take this up. Now I'm giving you 2 questions. You can attempt that and I'll give you questions further. I'll cover that up, don't worry. मैं वो क्वेश्चन भी करा दूंगा तुम्हें, ठीक है? बट अभी मैं 2 क्वेश्चन माइक्रो से दे रहा हूं तुम्हें। गिविंग यू 2 क्वेश्चंस फ्रॉम माइक्रो। सो द फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज, जिन लोगों ने किताबें बंद कर ली थी उनसे क्षमा प्रार्थी हूं, लेकिन आप ये लिख के तब छुट्टी कर सकते हैं। सो यू टेक दिस अप। योर फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन हियर इज, show that both Marshall and Walrus had unstable equilibrium. Both Marshall and Walrus had unstable equilibrium if demand curve becomes upward sloping and supply curve becomes downward sloping. And one more question you write. Consumer equilibrium in cardinal utility can take place only if price elasticity of marginal utility of commodity is unitary elastic. Again, both of these 10 marks, 150 words. And I'll do one thing so that we don't have a backlog of questions. From Monday when we start meeting, I'll solve the first 2 questions first. So these 2 questions I'll solve first since we are doing micro. And then 15 minutes before the class ends, I'll start picking 1 question each from Indian economy and start giving you the answers. So that ways, over the next week, all the questions on Indian economy and these 2 questions on micro, we will be able to cover that up. I repeat again, we will have a class on Saturday, the coming one, not tomorrow. कल क्लास नहीं है भाइयों और बहनों। आपकी अगली क्लास मंडे को है और फिर अगले सैटरडे क्लास होगी। थैंक यू, हैव अ ग्रेट डे, बाय बाय। Correct, Shiv Shankar, you're right. You can make excess demand and supply on same curve, Deepti, not a problem. Yes, they can ask you, Raghav, Marshallian criticism also. अच्छा, जब भी तुम जाने लगोगे ना तो मुझे बता देना, एक ईमेल कर देंगे हम लोग नेक्स्ट आईएएस सपोर्ट को, फिर मैं बोल दूंगा उन्हें। डोंट। नो नो नो, MUM is a constant. हाँ ठीक है, नहीं MUM हॉरिजॉन्टल पे नहीं, MUM हॉरिजॉन्टल लाइन ले सकते हो, बट MUM है तो वर्टिकल एक्सिस पे, दैट इज फिक्स्ड, बिकॉज मार्शल ने अज्यूम ही कर लिया था ना एज फिक्स्ड। यस यस, ये मुझे दे दो, मैं आराम से देख के कर दूंगा। इस पे अपना नाम लिख दो बेटा प्लीज कहीं। हाँ, मैं 1 सेकंड लूंगा बस। मैं एक सेकंड लूंगा बस, हाँ, जस्ट 1 सेकंड। एक्चुअली ऑनलाइन वाले मुझे देख नहीं पाते ना, तो क्योंकि मैं कैमरा से हट गया हूँ, सो दे वुडंट नो वेदर आई एम हियर और नॉट। करेक्ट शिव शंकर? नेक्स्ट क्लास वी विल कंटिन्यू विथ मार्शल एंड वॉलरस सम्यक। Stable equilibrium will happen whenever your quantity traded rises with demand above supply. That is the stable equilibrium, Vigneshwaran. Thank you. The firm is not going to dump the production, Himanshu. The firm is not exiting the market. Actually, the firm will be closing down temporarily. So they will not dump the market. Remember that. No, prices don't adjust faster necessarily, Anusha. I will teach you unstable equilibrium on Monday, Vigneshwaran. Don't worry at all. Yes. 1 second bas. Yes. No, economies of scale can come into picture, but supply curve is derived from MC curve, no, not from AC. Economies of scale तो AC से आता है ना? No, because mostly the word limits won't permit you. So the figure explanation should be done only when you have a long answer to write and less words. Oh yes, it's okay. You can use that. You can use it. You can write vice versa. Write vice versa. I'll take 1 second लूंगा बस. MUX by PX is not utility, no, Pritha. It's the ratio of utility to price. MUX is not dependent on income. All right? MUX is not dependent on income. You can always draw it on the same diagram, Sonal. Not a Sonali, I'm sorry. Not a problem at all. Thank you, Anusha. Bye. Any equilibrium supply curve is derived from marginal cost curve. इकोनॉमीज ऑफ स्केल क्यों ला रहे हो बीच में? वो तो एवरेज कॉस्ट से रिलेटेड है. इकोनॉमीज ऑफ स्केल इज नॉट रिलेटेड टू मार्जिनल कॉस्ट, इट्स रिलेटेड टू एवरेज कॉस्ट. एनसीईआरटी पढ़े हो? Have you read it? Go and read it today. मैंने आज बता दिया ना, आज फिर नहीं पढ़ोगे. आज घर जाओ और अगले 2 दिन में माइक्रो की एनसीईआरटी खत्म करो, नहीं तो ये धीरे धीरे राक्षसी लगने लगेगा. माइक्रो पढ़ लो अब. ठीक है. Yeah, willingness to pay. So, willingness to pay. So, in a sense, we are assuming that it's a consumer's market, and they have a given price, and whatever they are willing to pay, they will get it. Like price, yes. Willingness, yes. Right, right. Oh, I'll tell you. Because till fifth it is still rising. So the stability won't happen on fifth. Yeah, it's 30, but it is still rising. So the consumer has not yet realized that it's not rising anymore. Right. So it's like they enter the market, they start bidding up more. Consider it like an auctioning market. They enter and they say, look, I'm willing to pay more, why don't you? It's like the way people do black marketing and all. Some people say, I'm willing to pay more, and then they get the commodity. That way. It's subjective, yes. Your income, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Okay. Can be dependent on that. But that is supply side. We are looking at it from demand's point of view. Utility. Abundance has a role, no doubt. If you look at, no, you know, if you see Pepsi and Coke, जब तुम देखते हो when people are competing in dealership and all, how many shops they open, how many dealers they reach out to, that's quantity competition. No, because in market the prices are fixed by both, because these markets are not perfectly competitive the way we are drawing them. In real world, the markets are oligopoly, and monopolistic competition. So you won't see this one-to-one behavior in real world market. The markets can show close behavior, but not one-to-one necessarily. Yeah, yeah. Yes, you can give it to me. Thank you. Thank you. Figures को कर सकते हो point में explain आशु, कोई problem नहीं है. नहीं, both are independent, Ashu. MUX by PX and MUY by PY, depending on their own self. No, you know why? Because even with output rising, my utility will go on becoming lesser and lesser, and it is at a decreasing rate. Don't forget that. And hence more decreasing rate, no? See, what does decreasing rate means? I'm willing to give up less and less money now to buy this commodity. So after a point, I'll be willing to give even less money for that commodity. So should we, no, please understand. When a curve is decreasing, then what you think intuitively as increasing is actually decreasing. Like, you got to get that. If your dy dx is lesser than 0, then a d2y dx square will become greater than 0, when actually the absolute value is negative, because already there is a negative value outside. You see that? So that is why what is intuitively coming to your mind as increasing remains decreasing. नहीं, वही मैं तुम्हें कह रहा हूँ. हाँ ठीक है, उस सेंस में मान सकते हैं, लेकिन उसका जो डिपिक्शन होगा वो ऐसे ही आता रहेगा, क्योंकि ये डाउनवर्ड स्लोपिंग कर्व है. तो अगर एक, like think of it, I am buying more X, I have a luxury now, MUX. Gradually, as I go on buying more X, my marginal utility from this curve goes on becoming lesser and lesser. And at a, that is my point, that when it goes at a faster pace, that is why you are saying that I will be willing to give up lesser and lesser. So see, more commodity taken and less decline here. No, no, it shouldn't be. नहीं नहीं, वही कह रहा हूँ कि वो अगर सोचो, अगर ऐसे गया तो तुम ये कह रहे हो कि जैसे मैं एक्स कंज्यूम कर रहा हूँ, ये I'll just take 1 second. All right, online people, I'll see you on Monday then at 2:50. Thank you.